Hello, everyone. Welcome to the very first Tim and Tim show. My name is Tim Myers. We have Tim Hudson here today. Just by way of introduction, I'm a business solution architect at Veeam Software. Been with Veeam for about 2 years. Tim and I are both part of the Cloud and Service Provider program, and we're really putting this series together to provide relevant information to our cloud and service providers. There's a lot of information that Veeam puts out that's really targeted more for the broader audience, whether you're SMB, commercial, Fed-SLED, what have you. And it's no secret that the way that Veeam software that is consumed by the cloud and service providers is a different beast. And so we've decided that we're going to put together this series and we're going to talk about Veeam products through the eyes and behavior of a cloud and service provider. So before we get started with today's topic, Tim, why don't you just go ahead and take a couple seconds and introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Hey, everyone. I'm another Tim Hudson. I am a solutions architect here at Veeam. I'll complete 3 years of service with Veeam here at the end of June. And I'm really happy to be here, Tim, talking about this stuff because you are correct. It is important that we provide guidance that's specific to our service provider partners. And some exist today, and we're really happy with that content, but we know that we need to just keep providing additional guidance, especially with the rate that we're coming out with new products and releasing enhancements to existing products.
So the topic that we've chosen for today is going to be our Veeam Backup for Office 365 product. It's by far the biggest revenue producing product that Veeam has currently in its portfolio. In the service provider space, there's been a number of service offerings that have been brought to the table to really address this problem of I've adopted Office 365 and it's overwhelming to me the number of people that still think that Microsoft owns the responsibility of backing up and protecting their data. We've revved that product many, many times in the 3 short years that it's been around, Tim, and I think we're at 4.0 C right now. And so if we just kind of start minimally for the audience that maybe they're watching this and they don't really know a lot about our product, maybe you could just take a second and explain what is VBO?
Yeah, sure. So Veeam Backup for Office 365 is a simple, lightweight Windows-based application, and it's used to provide backups for the Office 365 suite of applications, which is specific today to Exchange, SharePoint, and OneDrive. And the idea is simply to back up that data, maintain it for a certain amount of time, depending on retention settings, and provide our end customers or service providers the ability to restore that data, maybe back to the original location or back to a separate location.
And so for those people that may be in a hybrid Exchange environment where they've used our traditional Veeam backup and replication to be able to protect Exchange, are they able to use VBO in that sense as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Whether it is that hybrid mode or just living completely in Office 365, either way is perfectly acceptable today. I'd have to say that the majority of service providers I work with are protecting specifically just in the cloud implementations. But this makes sense for our managed service providers or VCSPs in general. Their end customers are looking for simple and easy methods to, in this case, consume a SaaS service like Office 365, and that is simply in the cloud on its own.
And so as many of our service providers already have existing backup for Office 365 service that they're offering their customers today, and we talked a little bit a minute ago about just the rapid pace in which Veeam has updated this particular product, introducing new feature functionality, taking advantage of things like object storage. Is it been difficult for the service providers to kind of keep up with our software releases?
Well, I think challenging might be a better adjective, but I think it's fair to say that Veeam moves quickly. But so does Microsoft, and so does our end customers, and so does the industry. So we're all in this space where we need to continue to innovate and iterate a core Veeam value, and the Office 365 product is no different. So when we think about, let's say, something like 4C, what would be the top enhancements in this latest version? Well, it relates to some of this industry quick movement as Microsoft continues to rev their authentication mechanism, providing safer and more secure access to Office 365. We've got to keep pace with that. And so one of the enhancements in 4C is the ability to leverage modern authentication without some of these legacy authentication protocols that we've used before in order to effectively back up that data. So we've got a new authentication mechanism. We introduced in version 4 the ability to have multiple auxiliary backup accounts that helped us kind of sidestep some of the Microsoft Office 365 throttling that we saw when trying to perform these backups. And part of the enhancements in 4.0 or in 4.0C is to provide the ability to automate the creation of those accounts. And you see, like, there's this story building of these some potentially quite large enhancements, and they're coming out quickly. This isn't even a major version difference. So is it challenging to keep up? Yeah, but what we want to provide our partners in the service provider community and end customers is the education that helps them deal with this quick software release cycle. And so working with your Veeam specific engineering team, leveraging the Veeam forums, leveraging the existing technical documentation, which you don't even need a login to be able to consume. Anyone can go and drink from those cool waters. This is the way that we try to help our providers and mitigate some of that challenge.
Yeah, and I mean, we've all done our POCs, right, for our customers with VBO at this point, and just the number of steps, to your point, that needed to be previously done in order to kind of integrate the infrastructure, right, and be able to demonstrate the products and features was exhaustive. And so a lot of times I think partners and customers maybe several years ago would leap every single time that a new product release would come out, be the first in line to install it. And I think maybe now they're a little more standoffish at times, right? They want to be a little bit more aware. They want to be safe. Obviously, they have the responsibility of protecting data. They don't want to have any unsustained outages. And I think that the takeaway from this specific to our VBO product is that we've looked very hard at the challenges and the obstacles that occur throughout the integration process of being able to back up and protect that data. And we're really trying to make it simpler in terms with that simple, reliable, flexible methodology that Veeam has had for a number of years. I think our latest iteration of product demonstrates that. Now the automatic account creation, the ability to speed up the backups with the multiple backup accounts, right? The ability to leverage object storage as the industry is now becoming more and more accepting and expecting of object storage integration. So from a 4.0C standpoint, it definitely sounds like it's another step in the right direction for our partners and customers. So when we look at the journey, right, we always talk about how cloud is a journey. It's not something that you can go buy on aisle 4 at Walmart. And we think about, if I'm a service provider today, I really kind of fall in two camps. Camp number one is maybe I don't have that backup for Office 365 service today, but it's something that I'm very interested in developing and creating and offering for my install base. Or the second camp or scenario is I'm an existing service provider today, and I've experienced just enormous growth in this service offering. There's obviously things from an architecture and design and sizing perspective that need to be taken into account in both of those scenarios, right? And that seems to be a topic of conversation that we have on a regular basis right now. So we've got some things that we're doing a little bit behind the scenes in an effort to address those. Tim, why don't you take a second and just kind of let everyone know, what the team is doing, you kind of spearheading specifically to address that.
Yeah, the number one thing on our mind today is to create a standardized reference architecture that informs our partner community the way to build an Office 365 implementation that meets the most common field requirements that we hear of today. And in order to hit those common requirements, you really do need to build in a specific way. So regardless of whether you're in that first camp of trying to develop a service, we want to provide you the education that says, build it this way, and you'll have the greatest ability to, for example, provide self-service restore capabilities, be able to scale up and scale out your environment to take on these new users and new organizations, provide encrypted backups, provide backups that get or take advantage of a pretty significant amount of data reduction. You know, we want to provide this type of architecture that promises those who have yet to implement that they can do it in a really cost-effective, it's safe and secure, efficient manner. For those in the second camp who are already running today, I probably speak with a bunch of you. Thanks for being a partner and friend and peer. We want to make sure we provide you guidance that says, here's what other folks have asked us from a requirement perspective. Maybe it's the same as what you need today, and maybe it's different. Perhaps that will help you improve your service. And if you're interested in migrating towards a service that provides you those things like encrypted Office 365 backups, being able to take advantage of a significant data reduction, we want to provide those folks not only the architecture, but the path to migrate to that architecture. What are the ways and means to migrate the storage platform? What are the ways and means to move from a combined VBO server and proxy to a standalone proxy in order to hit these common field requirements and kind of live in a best practices world? And we think this education is out there for every customer. The Veeam technical documentation is great, but it's not specific to a service provider. It's inclusive of them, but not specific for you. And same with the existing best practice guidelines, the existing white papers. They are inclusive of service provider concepts, but maybe not specific to them. And so we'll provide this guidance for either of those two camps. And we're in a testing phase right now, and we're really looking forward to being able to provide that to the community.
So if I summarize what you just said, here's what I think I heard. We're going to be very prescriptive in this RA, right, reference architecture. We're not necessarily going to make general, all-inclusive type of recommendations, but we're going to take more spotlight approach on a particular set of recommendations that's going to be built into the RA that obviously we've got a great amount of familiarity with, a great amount of experience. We've done tremendous amount of, internal testing. We've collected feedback from our time in the field and experience of interacting with our VCSPs, right? And obviously the response that they have from a scalability standpoint with their install base. And this isn't necessarily going to be our way or the highway type of RA, but it's really, if you're looking for specific Veeam guidance, and as the creator of this product, we want to combine kind of our team's set of experience and recommendations into one document with a high level of success. That's really what this is going to be, right? So we're doing a lot of due diligence at this point. This is not a North America only initiative, right, Tim? I mean, you've been interacting with folks and some of our peers from other parts of the countries. And, I think that there's a general amount of excitement in the team because we're asked all the time, how do I do this? Or how do I do that? Or what do you recommend? Or what do you suggest? Or tell me what to do. And we always have given this broad guidance and very hesitant in some cases in terms of this is what you should do. And now what we're going to do is still offer that there's 7 ways to be able to consume this, but if you want our recommendation, this is going to be our recommendation, and you have the opportunity to either follow it to the letter of the law, or if there's a different way or a modification that you need to make to it, then we can certainly have that conversation and discuss the pros and cons of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely, Tim. I mean, for our folks out there who've been working with this team over the last, geez, 6, 7 years, I think, you understand that we intentionally want to provide a balanced approach to the community. If we think of a tool like Cloud Connect Backup, feature or product, however you want to play that, there's a lot of ways to accomplish that type of service offering. Depending on the storage platform or the compute platform, there's a whole lot of different ways to go about that. And we've been hesitant in the past to provide really prescriptive guidance, in the public, and I think we'll change that here with this offering in terms of storage platform, whether to use virtual machines or physical machines, which roles to put on what server. I think we'll be very specific here because this product lends itself to that. It lets us have this type of approach without constraining the product or the providers. I think we'll have a really good set of guidance here.
So Tim, when can we expect to see this released? I mean, are we going to get this by July 4th, or do you have a sense of time frame for when our partners can expect to see some of this collateral that's being created?
Yeah, I mean, the standard Veeam answer for anything like that, I mean, Tim, is it'll be ready when it's ready. However, I'd like to see this be done in the early fall timeframe. So if we could get through July cranking on this, I'd feel really good. If we saw a release in August, I think that's a fair type of expectation. But certainly the fall is our intention. I think we'd like to see this come out before version 5. So maybe that's our own target for this milestone.
Yeah, and I think, in fairness to the audience, right, we've talked about what we feel is a reasonable timeline. Obviously, there's some circulation inside of Veeam that has to happen once the documentation's been created for the various review process that needs to take place. Part of that is going to be getting some early partner feedback as well, right? We're not putting this together in a vacuum. Obviously, we've got a lot of effort that internal Veeam folks need to put into this initially, but I think the net result is that before the rubber stamp of completion gets put onto this and we get far enough along in the documentation creation process, we're going to be socializing this with some partners, looking for their feedback, making sure that there's nothing that we've missed, just really ensuring that this has been collaborative kind of across the board to take into account all the various scenarios that could come about, right? Because it's very difficult to come up with a one-size-fits-all approach to infrastructure, especially from a multi-tenant standpoint. But again, if we can hit all of those critical areas of concern and provide best practice recommendations for the deployment and configuration of each one of them, we feel really good that the summary of this document will be a set of recommendations and guidance that's been long awaited for by the VCSP community. So Tim, with that, so we're going to build this RA, and we've got a couple of topics of mind in terms of, how does this series continue? Obviously, we've got a couple of ideas that we're going to share. And one of the things that we kind of wanted to put out there to the folks that are watching this is this video informative? Is it helpful? Obviously, this being our very first one, and making the concerted effort to have a constant communication path with the VCSP community, we've got a couple of topics that we're going to throw out there in terms of, what could the next set of videos look like in this series? And I think one of them is, as we entertain every new partner that's interested in this service, one of the very obvious things that we get into is the notion of a POC. And you've done pretty extensive POCs lately with some really good documentation and a number of steps that I think really accurately covers all the capabilities in the product. So one idea that we've talked about is maybe we do a recorded proof of concept video where, just like we're sitting in front of a customer, right, whether that be on-site or virtual, and we're stepping through all of the different tasks and the features that they want to be able to experience as part of the product, that we actually put that in video, consumable on demand, highlights all of the main, again, all of those main areas that we would see, in a normal POC, and people could watch that, kind of at their leisure, right? I think the second thing would be, let's call it a couple of different sizing exercises in terms of, if I'm a net new offering and, gleaming and teasing a little bit of the content that's going to be included in the RA. If I know that I've got, 100 users and 100 mailboxes and 100 terabytes of data, and I'm just throwing numbers out there, but what's the thought process that we use as architects to really kind of provide that level of guidance to our partners in terms of how they would build that infrastructure, just to really give them a little bit deeper understanding of the architectural components and sizing considerations that are kind of built into this VBO product. And I think the third item, we've debated a little bit in terms of what that third item could be, but it could very well be an interview with a customer. It could be maybe a teaser of the 5.0 product if we're lucky enough to get our hands on it. It could be a what's changed in current version of VBO versus 4.0C to really kind of highlight some of those differences, right? Specifically around the transition from legacy to modern authentication, what it looks like to build an object repository, some of the newer features in 4.0 that maybe for those folks that are still running on a 3.0 product haven't had the opportunity or time or lab environment to be able to experience some of those products. So what we're going to do is we're going to list, let's say 3 or 4 items that we think would be beneficial for the audience, and we're going to ask you guys to kind of vote and let us know the type of topics that you'd like to see from us in the future. So with that, Tim, just kind of summarizing kind of what we've talked about today, obviously we're looking at a focus of this series on being cloud and service provider content, right? Really kind of putting a new frame of reference on the consumption of Veeam software and the considerations of how that software gets used differently in the cloud and service provider realm versus an individual enterprise customer. Our focus in this particular topic was around our backup for Office 365 product and the new reference architecture that we're coming out with. And I think the one highlight that I would say here is that at the moment, this is unique to VBO, right? Being our backup for Office 365 product. But the idea here is that the prescriptive nature that we're going to now adopt in terms of architecture and design recommendations is really going to eventually span across all of our products. Cloud Connect backup and replication, VAO, all the products that our cloud and service providers are currently consuming and looking to consume in the future. The expectation would be that we're going to produce a series of reference architectures that really kind of provide that same level of guidance no matter what service offering or approved Veeam use case that they're going to market with. So Tim, as we wrap up, any final comments for the audience? Any teasers about things to look forward to? The floor is all yours, buddy.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. I mean, the thing I'd keep in mind is we just had our Veeam conference earlier this week, right? Or earlier last week. And a lot of this content is available to be consumed on demand today. There's a ton of Office 365 content and a ton of content for other service provider specific or just Veeam specific items. And in terms of where I see this dialogue going between us, Tim, I mean, I definitely would like to see this cover other products that our service providers are consuming today, like Cloud Connect Backup, Cloud Connect Replication, specifically with vCloud Director. I think there's a lot of opportunities here, and I'd love to see us continue this conversation with whatever the audience was interested in. And if they don't tell us, picking it ourselves.
Yeah, we can certainly talk, can't we? All right, great. Well, Tim, listen, thanks very much for your time today. I think this has been great. Definitely look forward to doing more of these and providing valuable content out there to the audience. So, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and sign off for this episode one of the Tim and Tim Show. And guys, thank you so much for your participation. Have a great day.
I, I